To hype or not to hype? This is the question. Well, let's see if the two fragrances that are standing in front of me are worthy of being hyped up. Sharaf Devine from Zimaya and Vulcan Black Friday from French Avenue. Hey guys, I'm George, the nice medic gentleman, and it's time for your dose of some fragrance content. It's also time to talk about a few more hyped up fragrances. A couple of fragrances that a lot of people have talked about in the past month or two, and now it's my turn to take a look at them and tell you my honest opinion on whether they're worthy of being checked out. They come from the brands of Zimaya and French Avenue and are called Sharaf Devine and Vulcan Black Friday. I'm going to start with this one from the brand of Zimaya, which is called Sharaf Devine. Now, for those who don't know, if there are some people out there who don't know, Zimaya is a sub-brand of Afnan, and Afnan usually is a fragrance that I'm very happy with. It's one of my most favorite Middle Eastern brands or Dubai brands, and Zimaya is like they're slightly more budget-friendly sub-brands, and I was one of the few creators that talked extensively about Zimaya fragrances a few years ago. Nowadays the brand is a lot more popular, a lot more people are talking about them, and I was one of the very first people to actually talk about the original scents in this lineup, which were called Sharaf Blend and Sharaf the Club. And a couple of years later we have a new addition to this lineup, which is called Sharaf Devine. Now, Sharaf Blend was a sort of a clone with a twist of Kilian's Angel Share. Sharaf the Club was something that smelled a bit like Creed Aventus Absolute, but at the same time didn't really feel like a clone, more like an inspiration. Sharaf Devine is yet another fragrance that feels like heavily inspired by something original. In fact, I can call this one a clone. This one is cloning Kilian's Angel Share Paradise. So the original Sharaf blend was a clone, sort of a clone of the original Angel Share, and now we have a clone of Angel Share Paradise. A very quick look at the packaging and the presentation, because it's quite nice. This is the way that the bottle looks. It's this dark brownish color with some golden accents. The important stuff here: bottle size is 100 milliliters. The concentration is Extrait de Parfum. This is how the packaging looks and where the bottle sits. It has magnetic edges. It's a pretty nice presentation. If you want to know a particular production date of this bottle, it's September of 2025, and then this is the way that the bottle looks, very similar to the other fragrances in this lineup. Nice frosted type of glass, and you also get a good sprayer. It's not, I think the older fragrances in this lineup used to have slightly better sprays, but this still is not bad at all. Feels like semi-pressurized. As I said, this one is inspired by Angel Share Paradise, and it smells quite close to Angel Share Paradise, but it's not an exact clone. It opens up with a nice amount of booziness, spiciness, and that raspberry note which the original fragrance is known for. And it's a very nice touch. I really like what Kilian did with that raspberry note, the way that they reworked the original Angel Share. And I can say that I enjoy Paradise more than the original Angel Share. And Sharaf Devine opens up very similar to the original one, although I find a few differences. For example, I find this one to be a little bit more spicy. This one having a lot stronger cinnamon note that I find in the original scent. And initially, after you first spray this one, I find the raspberry note to be a little bit less prominent than the original one. Other than that, you'll get a bit of a fruity sweetness, you'll get some of the booziness from the original scent, in fact pretty similar amount of booziness, and you'll get a lot of the same sweetness that you'll find in the original fragrance. A hint of the rose as well, but again the rose note is not as pronounced as what you'll find in the original scent. The more this dries down, what happens is that it becomes sweeter, it becomes less spicy, it becomes less boozy, and it also an interesting way that this changes is that in the mid dry down, that raspberry note becomes a little bit stronger, at least to my nose, and here is where it actually becomes stronger than the original scent. So in the opening, the raspberry is slightly toned down compared to the original. In the mid dry down is like ramped up compared to the original one. Now the dry down in here again feels similar to Angel Share Paradise, but at the same time feels like a bit of a twist. In a way, this also reminds me in its dry down a little bit of Latafa Hamra. It's like taking Latafa Hamra and Angel Share Paradise and coming up with Sharaf Devine. Overall, it has nice quality, it smells, I would say, decently close to the original scent, but with a few differences. It's not an exact clone, and definitely, to my nose, this is not the closest smelling clone compared to the original one, so, you know, closeness-wise. There's one other clone which I find to be more similar to the original scent, but overall, this will get you in the same vein, and if you are familiar with Angel Share and Angel Share Paradise, you'll immediately recognize what Sharaf Devine has been inspired by. When it comes to performance, this is one area where this fragrance actually disappointed me. Now, especially if we talk about total longevity. What I've been getting out of this one, keep in mind I've had it for a few weeks. It's not like I received it yesterday and I'm doing a review. I waited you know, for a few weeks simply to see if the performance will improve. But personally, for me, this has been giving me around about 7 hours of performance, which is less than I expected it to have, less than people claim to have. I don't know if it's with skin chemistry, if it's not working with my skin for some reason, but definitely I'm not getting very strong performance. It's not a bad performing scent, but not as strong as I expected it to be. On the other side, on the other hand, though, the projection is quite nice in the first about hour and a half, maybe even up to 2 hours. The projection is above average, it's quite strong, but the disappointing part has been about total longevity. Price-wise, I personally paid around about 26-7 euros, around about $30. At that price point, of course, compared to the original scent, seems like a bargain. And it's a little bit cheaper than, let's say, French Avenue's Raw Blend Sequoia, not by much, but still cheaper, and roughly it goes for the same price as something like Rayhaan Valhalla, for example. Again, compared to the price of the original, it seems like a great deal. Versatility-wise, I would say this is a perfectly unisex scent that is a lot better suited for the colder months of the year. And now let's talk about the other one from French Avenue, which is called Vulcan Black Friday. This is a sort of a limited release, it's not that widely available, but it's an interesting scent that I was really looking forward at trying. Let's go over the packaging and the presentation very quickly. Very standard presentation for the Vulcan line. Again, you get an outer sleeve and then the inside box. Again, you have this snake theme going on. You have this snake on the front of the sleeve. You got this snake pattern on the actual box. And you have this Black Friday here on the side. As usual, the important stuff, bottle size is 100 milliliters. The concentration here is Extrait de Parfum. And the manufacturer date on my bottle is October of 2025. And then this is the way that the bottle looks. Very similar to other fragrances in this Vulcan lineup. Again, the snake tink and all that stuff, but in black color. This one having, I would say, a good atomizer. Now, just like other fragrances in this lineup, this is an inspiration or a clone. This one smells a lot like a fragrance from the brand of Xerjoff, which is called Tony Iommi Defied. Now, if I had to say something, I would have said that probably Fragrance World should have gone with cloning the original Tony Iommi, because I like that one more over Defied, but I was curious to see what they have done with the scent profile, and I'm pretty happy to say that as far as the scent goes, this smells very, very similar to the original one. It's not a fragrance safe for blind buying, keep that in mind, because this is a very heavy on the leather and rose combo, basically. So if you don't like leather-based fragrances, if you don't like rose-based fragrances, you should sort of stay away from this fragrance. It opens up with a heavy blast of that leather and rose combo with some spiciness. There's a bit of a saffron note in this one. There's a bit of cinnamon with this one, a hint of fruity sweetness. There's an apple note in this fragrance, but keep in mind that this is not a sweet fragrance, so definitely not for those of you who like sweet based perfumes, because there's almost no sweetness in it. In the opening, there's a bit of that apple note. On the dry down, I find this one to have a little bit of ambery sweetness, but not much. Basically, the two main notes of this one are the leather and the rose. So yeah, again, if you don't like leather or rose, just stay away from this fragrance. On its dry down, as I said, it becomes a little bit ambery. You still get a lot of that rose, you'll still get a lot of that leather. There's a hint of mossiness with this one. It just feels a little bit earthy, like you know, an earthy type of undertone in this one. And maybe there's I would say a hint of patchouli as well. But overall, that's pretty much it. It's not an overly complex scent. and definitely not as dark and as challenging as some people expected this one to be. But yeah, it has nice quality and smells very similar actually to Tony Iommi Defied from the brand of Zurjov. When it comes to its performance, it's again a good performing scent without being anything special. I've been getting around about 7.5 to 8 hours of performance from this one on my skin, with good projection in the first hour and a half. It's not an overly loud fragrance, it will not push like super hard, but definitely performance wise it's a good performing scent, again without being anything special. Price wise, depending on where you live in the world, this can vary, but around here in Europe, this costs somewhere between 50 to 60 euros, and in the States, this should probably cost you somewhere between 55 to 60 dollars. So again, just like a lot of things from French Avenue lately, this is slightly more expensive, but again, compared to the price of the original fragrance, this seems like a bargain basically. When it comes to versatility, it's a strictly cold weather scent, very masculine, and I would say more appropriate for nighttime usage. And at the end, as I've been doing lately, I'm going to give you a few pros and cons about each fragrance, and I'm going to give you my final score on both of them in the same order as I started. Sharaf Devine, pros and cons. The pros is that this smells very unisex, that it's a very likable scent, that's very easy to wear, and has good quality and decent performance. The cons, I would say that this is not as close to the original one as I expected it to be and as some people claimed it to be, and also this didn't perform as good as I expected it to be. So those are the pros and cons. If I have to rate this one, I'll give it a rating of 8 out of 10, at least for the moment. Maybe this will improve, especially performance wise with maceration. In the future I may change my rating, but for the moment I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I'm going to take away 2 points for the fact that it's not as close to the original as I expected, and because it has less performance than I expected it to have. Vulcan Black Friday, the pros and cons about this one. The pros are that this smells of a very high quality. Another pro is that this smells very niche. It smells a bit challenging, but I will give it a pro for that because it replicates the original scent quite well, and that's another pro because this actually reminds me a lot of the original fragrance, and it has good performance. The cons, I would say that again, just like the pro, the challenging scent will be a pro and a con. This is not as wearable for a lot of people out there because of that strong leather and rose combination, and also because a con about this one will be that I find this one to be a strictly cold weather scent and a strictly nighttime scent in my opinion. But my final rating or final score on this one will be a 9 out of 10, simply because I think French Avenue have done a good job with this fragrance, copying the original scent and all that, and I really like the way that this one smells. I'm going to take a point away because of its limited versatility. And so guys, in today's video I did my full review, my honest full review on two very hyped up fragrances from the brands of Zimaya and French Avenue, Sharaf Devine and Vulcan Black Friday. I hope that you found today's video interesting or helpful. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me in the next video for your dose of some fragrance content. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.